It'll be the middle of winter, but come February 2014, one Russian city will be the hottest destination in the world. Tourists from across the globe will be heading to the Black Sea city of Sochi for the start of the Winter Olympic Games. More than $10 billion is being spent to prepare, and the idea is that the Games will leave an economic, cultural and environmental legacy that won't just benefit Sochi, but Russia as a whole. It's a lofty goal, and I wanted to see for myself how things were taking shape. And if you're heading down here in the summer, you only need to travel light. It makes a very nice change to be able to travel around Russia dressed like this, because here in the subtropical south, t-shirt and shorts is pretty much all you need. I'm in Sochi, the longest city in Europe and the host of the 2014 Winter Olympic Games. The city's coastline extends an amazing 145 kilometers along the Black Sea, and I was going to need some local help to get to know it properly. And who better than an Olympic volunteer? It's my welcome party. Pavel.
Hello, welcome to Sochi.
Thank you very much, sir.
My name is Pavel and I'll help you with your transfer.
Great. A man who likes his sunshine, Pavel moved here several years ago from Siberia and has seen some significant changes take place. So, Pavel, the last time I was here was in 2007, before Sochi actually got the Games. I mean, it must be almost a completely different city now.
Of course, Sochi is a different city from 2007 because now we have totally other infrastructure. We have new roads and we have almost finished Olympic venues. You can see the coastal cluster where amazing venues, and sometimes maybe you have a feeling that they appeared there one night.
I knew I'd be spending most of my time around the Olympic site, but first I wanted to see more of the city itself, and Pavel was happy to give me a tour and a history lesson. This looks like a wealthy man's playground around here.
Yeah, this is a Sochi seaport.
Yeah.
And actually, this place was one big swamp. It used to be till the 20th century, and the native people were living high above in the mountains, and because of the malaria, they were feared to step here.
Yeah, of course.
And only 20th century, Dr. Podgorski has put here a small fish, a gambusia, which is eating the
mosquitoes.
The mosquitoes,
yeah.
Yes. And actually, no malaria since 1950. No one was ill.
Sochi's warm climate has led to a city full of lush greenery. And even Russia's most famous old Bolshevik gets a tropical setting. Lenin among the palm trees. I wonder if he thought he'd ever have such an exotic setting. But much of the city's other architecture has a classical touch.
This style is called Soviet Classic. You can see it looks like Parthenon, and it is widespread all over Sochi. The idea was that Soviet people need to be held and to rest in palaces. So it looks like a real palace.
It might be known internationally for the Olympics, but for decades, Sochi has been Russia's favorite seaside resort. Tourists still flock to the beaches here every summer, and new hotels are popping up all over the place to cope with the expected increase in demand. You're always guaranteed to get a suntan down here, but be warned, the weather can be very unpredictable.
There's one thing you've got to be prepared for in Sochi: to make a quick getaway.
And this was no ordinary storm. Fortunately, the ominous black funnel stayed well out to sea, but I was soaked and decided it might not be a bad idea to head away from the beaches and up into the mountains. You might think that a city on the sea would have all the fish that it could handle, but it seems in Sochi there's always room for more, and they've been farming these beautiful rainbow trout here for almost half a century. This is Russia's largest trout farm, with more than 80 hectares of land, 200 separate ponds, and some rather voracious residents. Start the frenzy. Oh yeah.
They have a good appetite, but they don't know their limits.
There's some hungry fish, look at that. Wow. Alongside the rainbow trout, the farm also has pools full of flashing amber trout and the famous Black Sea salmon, which swim into mountain rivers to spawn.
They can hardly be observed because they rush to the surface, snatch the food, and dive to the bottom. They are as voracious as trout. Trout have 48 teeth in the form of hooks. There are teeth even on their tongues and gills. Should you let them bite your fingers,
Right, so don't stick your hands in there, is sound advice, I think.
the wound will heal over only a couple of weeks later.
The farm produces more than 800 tons of fish every year and organises daily guided tours. But if you're more of a four-legged fauna fan, there's plenty of that nearby too. You might not be able to ski up in the mountains at this time of year, but they're still an amazing place to visit. I'm standing right on the edge of the Caucasus National Reserve, and I'm off to meet some of the locals. Alexei has been running this sanctuary for more than a decade, but the history of the reserve here dates back to the 1920s.
The initial purpose was to preserve the bison, but later the nature reserve was entrusted with broader functions to preserve other animals as well as the natural environment. The nature reserve occupies an area of 340,000 hectares.
These include lynx, roe deer, and the famous bison, as well as eagles and goats with some very impressive headgear. But if you'd like to get up close and personal with the wildlife, there's one animal that's definitely the star of the show. Hello, Oscar.
Oscar here is a male red deer.
Yeah. He's a handsome chap, aren't you? Goodness me. Get rid of some of these horrible flies. And in return for a few carrots, Oscar the red deer is more than happy to grace you with his presence. There's a bit of a bromance going on here. They're so soft, friendly. Apart from the friendly wildlife, it's also impossible not to notice the stunning mountains here in the nature reserve. And climbing isn't the only way to enjoy them. Well, I've obviously had it far too easy so far in Sochi, so we've decided to ramp it up a notch. This is the Navalichinsky Canyon, and I am about to literally explore its depths. Starting with a little shallow one. Canyoning is a popular summer sport in Sochi and combines hiking, jumping and swimming. And once we'd had our safety briefing, it was time to get into the water. Basically, you maneuver yourself through the cracks and gorges here any way you can, taking advantage of any handy rocks or tree branches along the way. Nothing like a relaxing dip in the river. Lovely stuff. Nikolai has been leading groups here for more than 10 years, and I was happy to take a quick break and catch up with him. Well, I'm glad that we're having a little rest here, Nikolai, because it's quite an intensive sport, canyoning, isn't it?
Yes, it depends on canyon, of course, but you can be really tired at the end of the route.
And what is special about this canyon?
I think it is the best canyon of our region because it is a lot of water. There is a lot of water here, and we have fine places where we can jump, swim, and it's very beautiful.
The Navalichensky is filled with spectacular scenery, and Nikolai certainly wasn't wrong about the jumping.
Biggest idea for this show, eh? Geronimo! Whew. Refreshing.
The whole route was a real adventure, and around an hour later I arrived tired and a bit battered at the bottom.
Made it! All the way through. And I think just about everything intact. Fantastic fun. But I'm looking forward to a bit of a sunbathe.
Once I dried off, it was time to head back into Sochi to take advantage of the good weather and do a little high-rise sightseeing.
Now, I'm a seaside town boy myself, so I've been on the odd fairground ride and seen my fair share of pierside entertainment. But here in Sochi, the people are promising to combine the two into something rather spectacular.
This is the grand opening of the largest Ferris wheel in Russia, an 80-metre-high monster. And to celebrate, they've decided to have a massive multi-ethnic choir sing the national anthem on it. Well, it certainly beats a ribbon cutting. The choir belted out their anthem with gusto. And if you don't mind a bit of a shaky ride, the reward at the top is truly spectacular.
Well, we might have had to go through a quite ridiculously heavy rainstorm to get clear skies, but I think that view is worth the wait.
If you stay in the centre of Sochi, you might never realise the scale of the building that's going on down in Imeritin Valley. There may be peace and quiet here, but the Olympic coastal cluster is a very different story.
The Olympic site in miniature, and this should give you an idea of just how close together it all is, from the stadiums themselves to the infrastructure that surrounds them. Everything's within walking distance, and it means that it's pretty easy for me to take a tour of the facilities.
This is the busiest construction site in the country, with more than 50,000 people working round the clock. And I wanted to start off in its biggest stadium.
This really is the jewel in the crown of the whole Olympic project. The site of the opening and closing ceremonies, a future World Cup football stadium, and a place with a rather unusual name. Right, Sima, so this is the Fisht Stadium, yes, not the Fish Stadium, but
Yes.
Fisht.
Fish, the last letter T.
Okay.
Fish is the name of the mountain.
Right.
The most beautiful mountain in the Caucasian range. That's why we call it this stadium Fish. If you see the arches, you have two arches in the design. They are like mountains. And not far from the stadium is the sea.
Yeah.
And if you come this side, you see it's a tunnel from the sea to the mountains.
Alongside the Fisht, there are 5 other stadiums, all within a few minutes' walk. The Balshoi Ice Dome and the Scheibe, where the hockey will be held, the Adler Arena for speed skating, the Iceberg for figure skating, and the Ice Cube for curling.
You see how compact the venues are to each other. We need 5 minutes to go from one venue to another venue. It's the most compact Olympic park in the world during the Winter Games, for sure, because the territory is just 256 hectares and 6 arenas in this territory.
And that was, of course, one of the real unique selling points of the
It's
whole
very
bit.
unique. You see Winter Games and near the seashore.
Yeah.
This is seaside.
Absolutely.
And 27 minutes and you're in Krasnaya
Up in
Polyana.
the mountains, well, yeah.
Yes.
I walked into the Iceberg Arena to see how the interior was taking shape, and it seems the workers here have everything under control, even if they do have to work from some pretty precarious positions. But that doesn't mean they're not looking for new recruits.
Well, the Games might still be a few months away, but as you can see, this is a project that's going to take some finishing. And I think they can probably use all the help they can get.
And Sochi's transport infrastructure is also getting a major overhaul.
If you're going to invite the people of the world to your city, you need to make sure that they can all get there. And that is where this comes in. Sochi's new $300 million airport. And by 2014, they think it could be processing up to 4,000 people every hour.
It's taken over 2 decades to get this airport running after initial building was abandoned back in 1989. But new owners came in and transformed it. And since May 2010, the Sochi airport has been open for business. And director Sergei says they're on track for the Olympics.
The major, of course, it's already done, and for normal passengers, everything is in place. But still, we need to do something before the Olympiad also. But our major focus is not on the construction, but on increasing of the efficiency of operation.
The airport is a striking symbol of modern Sochi. But just outside the city is an area which has barely changed in millennia.
This is one of the natural highlights of the Caucasus National Reserve, this unique subtropical forest which dates back 10 to 12 million years. Now, in the context of that, this tree, a massive yew, is just a baby. It's over 1,000 years old and still alive and kicking.
And there are plenty more where that one came from. And I headed to meet Alexei to tell me all about them.
The reserve staff aims to preserve all this and enable visitors to come into contact with the wild in its natural state. For years, this place has remained intact. Trees here have neither been felled nor burned. We'll continue to preserve it.
But even though humans have never destroyed these trees, the forces of nature have no such qualms.
Take a look at that tree over there. It probably fell down because of the wind or maybe because of an earthquake. We are in an area where small earthquakes often happen.
Earthquakes and high winds.
It can be dangerous.
Not today, I hope.
Aside from the natural places of interest, there's also a man-made relic here that's left over from the Dark Ages.
I've scaled the fortress. They think that these walls date back to around about the 7th century AD and could have been built by the native Cherkessk people who used to inhabit this area. It was obviously used for defense, but who actually built it, nobody knows for sure.
This park may be the most spectacular piece of tropical Sochi, but it's far from the only part. The climate here means that lush greenery flourishes almost everywhere, and that includes the city centre. And I met up with Pavel for the rest of my city tour.
So this is Riviera Park, which was made in the end of 19th century by Mr. Khuludov, Russian aristocrat who wanted to make wine in Sochi. And so all this territory was grown with grapes, for wine. And he has found that the grapes are too acid for wine.
Too acidic, yeah.
Yes, and he has cut all the grapes and he has put here tropical trees, actually. So this is him, Mr. Khuludov,
and this is why we have this park.
Yes, that's why.
Fantastic.
Pavel's work for the upcoming Games has already seen him take part in almost a dozen different major events, but it seems he fell into it rather by chance.
Why did you decide to become a volunteer?
Actually, I didn't know who are the volunteers, and I was strolling near the place where they were selected, and my friends asked me to go there, and they didn't know what's going on there. I came there, and I understand finally that I am a volunteer of my first event, and I had this event, and it was a thing which has changed my life. and now I can't imagine my life without volunteering.
Wow. So a very positive accident, perhaps, we could say.
Yes.
And with such a glowing recommendation, I wanted to find out what Pavel's program was all about.
Okay, James, now I'm going to take you to the place where you will become a real volunteer.
Oh, fantastic. The Volunteer Centre.
All the participants here are young, intelligent, and speak at least one foreign language. When they're working, they're supposed to personify the Olympic ideals of excellence, friendship, and respect.
Friendship means you can join in with the other groups as well.
The role-playing gives the volunteers a chance to bond, but also an opportunity to practice for situations they might encounter on the job, including some very demanding customers.
Imagine this situation. This is Innsbruck, this is Olympia World, this is Infodesk, and this is a sign, sorry, we have no tickets, with no, very big no.
Hello, I'd like 2 tickets for the ski jumping, please.
Hello, I'm very sorry, but we have no tickets.
Guten Morgen.
Guten Morgen.
Haben Sie Karten?
Oh, Entschuldigung, wir haben keine Karten.
Oh, bonjour, vous avez des billets pour le ski jumping?
Sorry, do you speak English?
Oh, well, I suppose I can do it a little.
Oh, I'll ask my colleague who speaks French. Okay.
And with that kind of self-control, you'd certainly want Pavel on your team.
Ice cold.
Thank you.
This is the man you need, absolutely.
Sochi knows that hospitality is all important, and with hundreds of thousands of visitors expected in 2014, the city is working towards becoming accessible for all.
Alongside the Winter Olympics, Sochi is also hosting the 2014 Paralympic Games, and that's meant some significant changes for the city's disabled community.
A few years ago, buses like this didn't exist in Sochi. But thanks to the games and campaigns from people like Oleg, more and more disabled facilities are being put into place.
Oleg, hello.
Hi, James. Hello.
How are you?
Yeah, good. What we're doing is helping as experts, helping the administration to tackle some of those many important issues. We give advice. We advise on where something should be built and how to avoid more mistakes.
That includes being able to take advantage of one of Sochi's most simple pleasures, a day at the beach. And we met up with Oleg's friend Rima to see what's been done and what's still going on.
These tracks, they've been around for more than 3 years. There are many facilities on the beach, and they've given disabled people much easier access to cafes, to restaurants, and other places. More and more beaches are expected to be made available in the same way as each season passes.
And fortunately, it's just as easy to get off the sands as it is to get on them.
One of the other great things about these facilities is that when the weather changes on a sixpence, as it does all too often here, it means that everybody is able to get under cover before the storm breaks. So I'm going to go with these guys and see if we can keep dry.
Whatever the weather, Sochi is a city that's built for tourism, and the boardwalks are packed with souvenir shops and a whole variety of entertainments.
You might spend your summer days sleeping on the beach in Sochi, but once the sun goes down here, the city wakes up.
Balmy summer nights and plenty of high-spirited holidaymakers mean this is a city that goes 24 hours a day. And if you're looking to check out the local music scene, you won't be short of options.
Now, I can't leave Russia's biggest seaside resort without checking out the local nightlife, and I've been reliably informed that this place might be quiet now, but it heats up quite a lot later on. And it does give me a chance to try out the house specialty as well.
Good evening. Could I have a Star Bar cocktail, please? A multitude of ingredients later, and my very colourful drink was ready. I didn't see exactly what went into it, but it certainly looked the part.
Спасибо большое. Ah, look at that. Bright blue with a blue cherry. Perhaps not terribly manly, but it is quite summery.
The drinks might be very modern, but the music here is pure old-fashioned rock and roll. And, like the cocktails, the audience laps it up. Normally, I'd be heading home to Moscow around now, but there's so much more going on in and around Sochi that I'm going to stay on to find out more about Russia's Olympic city and its region. And quite frankly, there are far worse places to spend your summer.